Good evening, everybody. We got here a 1v1 pro game between Vivi and MbL. So getting right into it, we do have Vivi playing as the Burgundians in the red, and his enemy to the west of the map is MbL playing as the Goths. Typical Arabia game. I will speed up a little bit as the sheep or goats are getting caught in. A few zebras are going to be pushed in as well, and we will just push over until something interesting happens. And what do you know? Right off the bat, something interesting happens. That is MbL going forward for some sort of a lame. I'm going to go to his point of view right now. His fog of war, he does see the berries, so he knows that the enemy is over here somewhere. Not sure exactly what he's going to be doing, but he decides to go to the south rather than to the east. And he's going to just sneak a villager, I think, as a matter of fact. Wants to get that villager in early so that he doesn't have to worry about it being caught later on with walls and more villagers. So this villager at this point in time, not doing too much, but his fog of war, he does see this gold. He does see that there is no one here. Of course, a little bit of trash talking between the two of them. And gonna see exactly what MbL does with this villager. Will he run right into the wood line or not? Is he gonna be safe or not? Right here, we see villagers. That is in the line of sight. Interesting to see if Vivi caught a glimpse of that blue villager. That blue dot on the screen would have just flashed up for a couple of seconds while MbL made his way around. And gonna wall in the gold of the enemy. And so Vivi, of course, at this point in time, we can assume he doesn't know that there is a villager in the back of his base, and he won't be knowing it until right now. He just saw the house go up, and MbL sees this villager and knows exactly what to do. Going to be trying to take out the villager, block in the rhino. And of course, Loom's not in for these villagers as of yet, so does add that little bit of anxiety to the enemies. And of course, because of the fact that this rhino is already on low HP, the rhino is going to be actually taken out before it can get to the town center. So MbL doing a little bit of a lame. Still possible for Vivi to be collecting some of that food, but it's not going to be ideal at all, as the scouts are battling back and forth, seeing who it is that can get the final shot. And of course, both scouts go down, and this villager for MbL has to retreat at this point in time. But will likely make it safe. Lots of wasted time, lots of wasted capacity here. All of these villagers having to travel all this way for that rhinoceros. Of course, at this point in time, that delay is going to be huge, because as you know, MbL's only been delayed by one villager being forward, whereas Vivi has had multiple villagers moving all over the place. MbL does have the villager lead because of the distraction, because of the back and forth that was happening earlier on. And even a goat gets stolen. I didn't realize until now that Vivi didn't have his goats. And so MbL gonna just be as much of a pain as possible. Take out that goat, so another one that cannot be seen. I'm gonna try to quick wall his way in, but unable to do so at this point in time. But what he can do is wall in the enemy.
Bonjour.
But that's not very long lasting, as this villager will definitely be going down. Probably won't be able to take out the goat in the meantime, and tries to wall in another villager, but unable to do so. So they are even now for vill counts. And now it's back to a normal game. Both of them in the dark age, both of them looking to get up as soon as possible. Vivi with 450 food, and MbL already clicked up, so we will be seeing him move up very shortly. This rhino is all completed now, and lots of just wasted time. And that's exactly what MbL wanted to see out of this. So he will be continuing on with a little bit of a feudal military, but likely we'll be seeing him go for a faster castle than what he would typically do. Sorry, bless me. And Vivi even knocking down the palisades, so just wants to get rid of all of this. And MbL's asking, why'd you pick Burgundians? Of course, Red Vivi is still not up to the next stage. He hasn't even clicked, and he is got the food. He's looking to get a little bit more villagers, one more villager before he goes up, and this is definitely going to be a wall-in defensive play for the Burgundian player, as man-at-arms will be on his face fairly shortly, and an archery range coming up for the Goth player. So, a little bit of back and forth between the two, and these man-at-arms will not be able to do too much. Full walls are in. All they can do is delay the enemy, as there will be some walls that'll have to go up behind these palisades. The palisades fall very quickly to man-at-arms. As a matter of fact, the villagers will just make it in time. Barely make it. And MbL just gonna waste. And that is the idea behind everything. You can see the score difference right now. 1200 to 975. That doesn't seem like too much, but this early in the game, that is huge, as archers are already coming out for MbL. And of course, badly housed. That is a known but not good trademark of MbL. Is his often being housed. But his aggression is forcing a tower up from Vivi, and that is a good move, right? Like, tower on the berries, never ideal. Never want to be doing a tower on the berries when you start the game, but sometimes there's no choice. A tower is the only form of defense, and it's past 50% of the way up, so that tower will be going up, and that is a waste of stone. Obviously, if it's necessary, it's necessary, but you don't want to be putting up a tower just willy-nilly wherever, especially when a second tower is already needed. So he is collecting stone, so Vivi won't be too worried about that, but there is military now in the back of his base. So one thing to note, Vivi's on the way up to Castle Age, and this army is not going to do well against the Castle Age army at all. So these towers, while not ideal, they are well placed, and they are able to do a little bit of damage. As I don't know how this archer got in where it is. Is this a hole? Oh, I see now. A little bit of a hole there. So the archers are irritating here, and then the man-at-arms and archers are just going to run straight through the wood line in the back. Could have actually looped around this way probably, but might take out another villager. Might not be able to. Of course, with the tower, that will be a little bit more difficult to engage underneath it. But the archers over here, again, blocking off the stone. And of course, there's stone to the north here, and stone to the northwest as well. But not a whole lot for stone for Vivi. He does have enough for another tower. That is no problem, but not a situation that he wants to be in at all, as there are still no military buildings out for Vivi. And more archers are coming forward. MbL knows that he's not going up to the next age anytime soon. Unless he buys his way up, he is a little ways away, especially if he's going to maintain production of army and villagers. Man-at-arms still surviving up to this point, and they will be going to this wood line over here. More delays and more just economy trouble, right? No pickoffs yet, but lots of weak villagers, so irritating definitely for MbL, but even more irritating for Vivi, having to run back and forth, move his villagers all over the place until he can get into a position in the next stage where he can actually be fighting back, as he is in the castle age, but nothing really has come out of it as of yet. The castle age has only produced wheelbarrow, so that is not where you want to be when you have the tech advantage. You want to be producing military that's better, or you want to be expanding your economy. Of course, wheelbarrow does expand his economy to a degree, but all of this waste, not worth it at all. And there we go. The castle will be going up for Vivi, and a castle on the front will get rid of all of the military that's attacking this wood line and this gold pile. And of course, we can see some military being built out of that castle, but very frantic. It's never a good situation when you have this many villagers, 14 villagers out of a total of 36 building up the castle. And we do see Castiliers coming forward. That will be an easy attack, and of course they are able to one-shot these cheaper feudal age units with that bonus that they do have. Fully upgraded, or when fully charged, they are able to take them out in one shot. Now, of course, the Castiliers, very strong units. They were nerfed a little bit when they first came out, but still a very formidable force. Against this many man-at-arms, very difficult to engage. That's the problem fighting against the Goths. I mean, you're gonna see spearmen, you're gonna see pikemen. And still just the one town center for Vivi at this point in time. He has really been improving his economy lately. Usually has a pretty strong economy, but in this situation, he might just want to engage against whatever military comes at him. In the meantime, MbL is already on 3 town centers, and Vivi's just having to run away. But once he gets to a good mass of cavalry, he will be able to engage. I mean, even this many, the 7 can take out this army fairly easily, as a monastery is coming up on the front. Interesting to see whether that is for relics or looking to do some conversions later on in the game. But the Castiliers able to engage. Not necessarily a good thing to be fighting underneath the town center, especially this early on in the game, but MbL, he's protected. He's ready for it, and he is already in a good position. As we see a lot of longswords coming in, and this lone tower is not going to do too much against 8 infantry units that are able to just completely shred through these buildings. The Castiliers able to do good damage against these spearmen, so of course that first hit is so big that there's nothing really that the enemy can do to engage, as there's no archers. We can always just work on the stone from within the walls. And still Vivi trying to get some sort of an attack going, and he has closed the gap as far as the points go. That is mostly due to having a castle up, but of course, to see some town center fire there. There we go, and Monk going for a conversion, won't be able to get it at this point in time, but that military for MbL does fall to the wayside, and for the first time in a long time, Vivi doesn't have enemies in his base. First military building is going up, apart from that castle for Vivi. I will be interested to see what he decides to go for. It might be just going over into the Cavalier switch. Knights then Cavalier, of course, able to be made a little bit earlier for the Burgundians. But he might also just be wanting to engage a little bit better against the military that's coming out against him. So pikemen is never an easy thing to argue, to fight against. But when it is Goth pikemen, it's just that much scarier because they're already so cheap and now just so much cheaper for the Goths. And we see a 4th town center already for MbL, so that is a big engagement. And there we have it. Stable is up, and we are already seeing husbandry coming in. As a 2nd town center is going up for Vivi, and he's just having to run away from these pikemen. No real answer to the pikes that will eventually become halberdiers, but he really needs to work on something because mass pikemen flooding across is terrifying when you are playing as full cavalry. You never want to be engaging against that. And we do see a longswordman. I believe that might have been a conversion from earlier, not producing his own longswordman as of now. But little groups, sure, he is fine to engage, but this army can quickly snowball when you are playing against the Goths. You never want to be engaging too much pikemen against cavalry. Still just 2 town centers for Vivi. He's still open on the front, and he seems okay with that at this point in time. Okay to play a little bit messy. And he can't engage as of yet. He did send a villager forward for a forward siege workshop, but that siege workshop is gonna be pushed back a little bit for now as more and more pikemen are coming forward. More and more pikemen will be engaging. But with the longswordman running away, it does buy Vivi that little bit of time, and so he will be able to gain a bit of a foothold on this hill on the front of MbL's base, and he will likely be able to put up this siege workshop, but it could be denied shortly, as there are 5 barracks producing pikemen at all times, and 5 barracks producing pikemen versus 1 castle producing castiliers. Very difficult to engage against. That's 5 to 1, and this army from Vivi is going to fall to pieces. The production building's right next door, and so even with the monks healing up, that is not enough, and having to run away. The siege workshop goes up, but it's too little too late. Vivi now on the back foot completely, and this big military coming forward, that is 29 military that directly counters the military of Vivi. And so what is the move from Vivi? That's the question, really. What is Vivi going to go for when he knows that he cannot engage against the pikemen as well as he would like to? Of course, 1 versus 1, Castilier does beat the pikemen easily, but in this mass, when you can produce this many, very difficult to engage. So upgrades are coming in. 4+ defense, and of course monks are forward. Going to try to get as many conversions as possible, and then just run and hide inside the town center. But the good thing, of course, being a cavalry civilization, you do have mobility, and that is what Vivi is fighting for right now. Engaging, raiding, trying to fight. This army of pikemen and longswordmen, sure, it can beat the army of Vivi right now, but it cannot catch up when Vivi splits up his army, is running around, taking out farmers, taking out villagers, and suddenly they are tied for villagers, despite the fact that there were 4 town centers for all of this time, and now only 3 for Vivi. Actually, as a matter of fact, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 town centers for MbL, so he's really looking to get that economic lead. He needs to make as many villagers as possible to maintain the production, get that Goth spam going across the map. And Vivi is just remaining calm, building up his economy while he can, and looking to gain whatever advantage he can, as he now has the villager lead. But again, Castilier is able to run around and make sure that MbL gets out of position as quickly as possible.
See,
these little armies so slow compared to the faster moving cavalry. But this army at this point in time can engage underneath the town center no problem. Can actually take out the town center fairly easily. Of course, a couple of monks are going to want to engage, get a couple conversions, but this town center is good as gone, as another castle is going up behind, but will definitely go up, but at what cost? Going to be a lot of villagers falling, going to be a lot of eco wasted, as the town center is falling, and gone. Just like that. So more villagers going down. And at the same time, though, MbL is not producing, and he's losing villagers in his own base. Massive delays on the farms. Massive delays for the gold, the wood. Town centers are full, not having villagers working, so Vivi just builds the town center up exactly where it was before, and he now has 2 castles producing the 1 unit that he wants. So that doubles his production against this army that is just going to keep massing. Now, one thing to note is Vivi has been realistically on the back foot for most of this game, but through his raids, through his use of the mobility, he is able to engage against just the economy of the enemy, and that is what's keeping him in the game. He's been able to protect himself as well as possible. Bit of a misclick there, attack the house instead of the villagers, but he gets picks. He's taking out villagers, and they are tied once again for villager counts, because look at this, MbL is now raiding with pikemen and longswords. He knows that he needs to keep a ball of army forcing the fights. He knows that Vivi can win if he's not forcing fights, and that's exactly what he wants to do. Town centers all over the place for MbL, as he wants to provide that protection while also making sure that he's building as many villagers as possible. Look at this too. He's got 6 pikemen at any given time, 4 or 5 villagers at any given time, and we now have a castle on the front. This front that's been open for so long is going to finally close out for Vivi, as Vivi's attacking again underneath the town center, taking out the military, not wanting to engage with this few army, but definitely could go either way. The one thing to note, though, the longer a game goes on, the better off the Goth player is. That Goth spam in late game is very much so unstoppable. And so the key now is time. So Vivi is on his way up to the next age. He will have the tech advantage, a big tech advantage. And taking a look at MbL, he's not even close to clicking up to the next age. He does not have the food. He's fairly close when it comes to gold, but he's a long ways away. So his farming economy is very big with 53 farmers. And actually, just like that, holding off production, he does have enough now to buy his way up to the next age, frantically dropping the 2 buildings that are required to make it to the next stage, a monastery and a siege workshop, and he will click up shortly once he gets enough gold. We might be seeing some buying and selling in the market for him to get up, and there it is. He is now on his way up to the next age, but there's a big advantage for Vivi. And look at the number of Castiliers here, able to completely destroy the economies. Doesn't need to engage against these pikemen, instead choosing to just raid. And if he goes underneath these town centers, there's too many villagers to fit inside of the town centers, and so he will be able to take out villagers left, right, and center. And MbL is losing a ton of villagers, just fall down so quickly to these units, and the units able to just run away from the pikemen, not wanting to engage, just leave, hit, run, and leave. And that's exactly what MbL wants out of this engagement, is for a actual one battle to happen. But Vivi knows that he cannot let MbL have what he wants. And we now see conscription coming in, some defense upgrades coming in, and a couple eco upgrades as well for Vivi now that he is in the next age.
Hey, sir.
But the Goth spam cannot emphasize enough how scary it is combating the Goth spam. And once these units are upgraded, we're talking halberdiers and even could go as high as champions. Very, very difficult to engage against. So again, gonna need to use mobility of Vivi. And Vivi, with a big villager lead, he does have the economy to be producing and producing and producing. Interested to see whether he gets more upgrades for his cavalry, because right now he's not producing any cavalry. He is getting the upgrade. There we have it. He's getting elite Castilier. Wants to make sure that these units are as strong as possible, and that upgrade is going to make a huge impact, and they will be able to engage. These are now halberdiers, building 6 at a time, and these are being built out of Goth barracks, so not an easy feat to engage against. No matter what unit you're creating, it is difficult to engage against Goth spam of infantry. And militarily, we're talking almost double the military for MbL as compared to Vivi. So, gonna have to kill 2 to 1 or continue to take out the economy. And we now see a switch into infantry for the Burgundian player. We are seeing squires coming in, we're seeing arson coming in, but we don't yet see actual infantry being built. And so the Castiliers able to engage against a few helbs at a time, but they just fall to the rest. And of course, gonna have to run around, and now that the upgrades are coming in from the castles for the Goths, these helbs will just continue to mass and mass and mass, and it's going to be difficult, extremely difficult for Vivi to engage. And then, of course, we do see another group of villagers coming forward. They will be attacking, but quick walls from MbL, and this might be the end of this army right here. Honestly, the army completely shredded. Look how quickly that many halberdiers took out that many Castiliers. But in response, we see the Flemish militia. Is this enough to take out the helbs? That is why he was getting the infantry upgrades. His villager count is now at 7. 7 villagers, but he's got the militia, and the militia do well, all things considered, against halberdiers. It's just, can they do well against this many halberdiers? That's the question. And the Flemish militia, of course, being an all or nothing move. It completely destroys your economy, and it completely overruns the enemy. So if MbL can just hold off against this Flemish militia, he knows that he can win. He has a 110 villager lead at this point in time. And that lead's just going to continue, because there's only so many town centers that can be producing villagers for Vivi. And underneath these castles, the Flemish militia unable to. Even there's one villager thinking, you know what, the other guys got to go, I'm going to go too.
See.
But the Flemish militia able to completely destroy the Helbs. But is it enough? Will he be able to overrun the entire army?
See.
And I don't know if it's enough. The Flemish militia move is such a scary move. But now there are champions in defense, and this many champions, it's tough for a Flemish militia to fight against this many champions, especially when they can be produced, because every time you lose a Flemish militia, you lose that for good. You can't rebuild them like you can a champion. But the economy for MbL is being wasted. It is being attacked on all sides by this militia, and the castles are down. So this is the time for Vivi. Vivi trying to engage wherever possible, trying to split up his army so he can take out the economies of MbL, and keeping his trebuchets active. Needs to take out production buildings, needs to take out town centers, needs to take out everything he can, because all of these production buildings are keeping MbL in the game. Interesting attacks, attacking the monastery, barracks, and town center, but able to engage because this is just such a big army. It's a wave of infantry that attacks, and as you can see, it might have actually bought enough time where Vivi is now at 55 villagers. He's only got half the villagers, so it's no longer that 110 villager lead that existed a while back. It's not quite as big of a lead as it was before. It's only going to shrink. So, he might have done enough to stay in the game. He didn't do enough to close out the game, though. So we see all 5 of Vivi's town centers are producing villagers. And he's able to push back the army. You know, the champion's very strong and able to be reinforced much better. But not quite there. And we now see the switch into hand cannons. Hand cannons, very expensive. They have been buffed recently, so they are a little bit better than what they were before. And hand cannons, if you get them massed up enough behind this Flemish militia, it might be enough to push back the Goth player. But he's not quite there yet, and that is a lot of champions coming forward, and there are not too many hand cannons on the field at all. There we go. This is the battle that decides it, because if Vivi loses this engagement, he is done. He doesn't have the hand cannons yet. He doesn't have the economy to reinforce as much as he would. And the engagement is fairly even, but more and more champions are just being thrown forward. So overall, I'd say Vivi lost that engagement, because look at the military of MbL. It is right back on track to where it was before. He still has double the military as Vivi. And Vivi, though he has 85 villagers, doesn't have the military to be engaging against this many champions. So, hand cannons, sure, they are a counter to infantry, but hand cannons need to be massed up quite a bit, and 54 champions, not something to laugh at. They are quite a bit to engage against, and there's more coming up right behind. So this castle will definitely fall. It can fall just to the champions themselves, and you know, this army will fall, the champion army, because there are enough hand cannons to engage against this small of a group. But the town center to the south, it's going to fall pretty quickly, the champions. And now the idea has switched, where MbL is now splitting up his army to raid. He knows that he can attack all over the place, but these hand cannons, they need to be massed. So now we are switching over to Vivi needing to have one solid point of engagement, but MbL saying no. Champions are in the back of the base, and we are at that point in the game where realistically there's not too much that any civilization can do against the Goth spam, just continuing to produce champions all across the map. Vivi actually with the score lead, so not a horrible position, so it might be playing into his mind, but he's got to know that deep down there's nothing he can do to engage against this spam from the Goths. He does have hand cannons, and they are a direct counter, but just not quite enough as of now, and his already weak economy is just falling apart to the champion raids, and we're seeing 6 champions being produced at a constant rate, and look how quickly they're produced. I mean, you look at this barracks, it creates one, and right afterwards creates another one. You can't engage against that apart from in one ball, because you need to be taking out the military buildings. And this army, sure, it's a good sized army, and it is a counter, but it's just what do you do? That's what this game has come down to, is what can you do to engage against these champions? Not a whole lot, as there is a big economic lead for the Goth player, and there's a military lead still. So the hand cannons are able to stand their ground against this small group. MbL is engaging in the back, but the hand cannons start to fall, and it is expensive to start remassing hand cannons. Very expensive.
Bonjour.
Gold is going to become an issue the further we go along in this game, and of course fighting over that center gold is big for the two of them, and MbL is going to definitely win that engagement, as this champion is still attacking on the gold miners, and going to be able to take out more and more and more. And champions flooding across the map. This is exactly what you expect to see from the Goths, and the Burgundians just not quite able to engage at this late stage of the game against this army. We do see some raids coming forward. A small group of 8 Castiliers, and able to get through. The quick walls don't work out, but those 8 units, they need to take out 50 villagers to even out the economies, so not quite sure if they'll be able to do that much, especially with Helds chasing them down. And so we will see a couple villagers fall, no doubt, but on the other side, we're seeing the military fall for Vivi. We're down to 22 military for Vivi, and these 7 will start to fall as well. The trebuchets going down, and more hand cannons trying to be produced, but unable to really engage at this point in time. So good raids, definitely, no doubt about that. Able to take out quite a few villagers over here in the back farms and on this wood line, but on the front of Vivi's base, in the middle of Vivi's base, he's being taken out, and his 3 relics that are in the monastery that have been providing with him with so much gold throughout this game, they are ejected from the monastery, so that will be one less form of gold that is coming in, and these units getting weaker and weaker, and now they will get taken out. So Vivi is, as mentioned before, Vivi is able to extend the game, but he can't win it. He can hold out, but at this point in time, winning is not necessarily on the table. The Halberdiers switch has occurred already, and you see another monastery going up, frantically trying to collect these relics back. Vivi knows the importance of these relics, and Vivi knows that him not having access to those relics is going to cause him to completely lose the game even faster than expected. And just a constant stream of Halberdiers going across the map, now switching back into champions. So MbL just going back and forth, champion halberdier, because of course he can, and that is it. That's enough for Vivi. He calls the GG, and overall, that's just what you get to a point against the Goths that you just can't win.